The FIA Formula 3 European Championship is back on the road once more. This weekend, we're at Spielberg in Austria. Round 22 of the championship coming up in a few moments' time. And the grid is formed based on the best time a driver set in the first qualifying session yesterday, with Felix Rosenqvist, the man on pole position. He is currently third in the championship, and he is the man who won all three races here 2 years ago. Glorious weather conditions, very, very hot, very, very sunny, and a very big crowd assembling already first thing in the morning. It's a very popular area for tourism around the Red Bull Ring, and lots of people camping and lots of people entering into the spirit of life here in the Austrian mountains. They have come from far and wide, I promise you, to watch not only the FIA Formula 3 European Championship, but also DTM, Porsche Carrera Cup Deutschland and the Audi Sport TT Cup, all on track this weekend. It's a real festival for motorsport enthusiasts, and in the shadow of the Red Bull itself, we are set to go racing. This first race of the weekend with Rosenqvist and Jake Dennis for Prema Power Team lining up at the front of the grid. It's a very spectacular setting, this, the track born out of the old Österreichring. And although you can argue that it hasn't got the same majesty that the old track did, compare it with many purpose-built modern circuits, it is still way above many of them. It has a lot of elevation change, it has lots of different cambers, it's one the drivers really like. And even though it's got modern-style Formula 1 runoff areas, here a lot of effort has been put in to try and make this track limits issue less of a problem. You're looking at Ryan Tveter starting from the pit lane. He had dramas in the first practice session yesterday. Spun over the curb, damaged the chassis and the bulkhead of the car, so he's had special dispensation for the repairs to be done on a new chassis, and he will start from the pit lane. Rosenqvist on pole. Just to go back to track limits for a moment, there's little strips of AstroTurf these days put in before you run too wide, and actually by going over those and a little bit more curbing you will be delayed, so you kind of penalise yourself. And yesterday, far fewer track limit messages coming up than you might have anticipated. Jake Dennis there, lining up on the inside of the front row of the grid. It's the one-by-one staggered grid. Pole position is on the outside of the circuit. Jake Dennis fourth in the championship, 4 times a winner, 6 wins to Felix Rosenqvist. And there, Lance Stroll, who, it is fair to say, has grabbed headlines this year for wrong reasons. Well, he's grabbed them this weekend for good reasons, because third fastest. He's been in the wars a bit, involved in some of the more spectacular accidents of the year, but on merit, third fastest in qualifying yesterday. Fourth on the grid is the new championship leader, Antonio Giovinazzi. He left Zandvoort at the end of the most recent weekend of racing, a fortnight back, with the championship lead. And Antonio Giovinazzi then coming here, a place that he had a win last year, looking to try to build the advantage in the title race over, among others, this man, Charles Leclerc, the Monegasque, who went off, of course, in race 2 at Zandvoort. He didn't score well. He only got 1 point out of race 3, and that really did derail what was looking like a very impressive championship campaign. So Charles Leclerc here needs to fight back. It's not a circuit he knows well, but 4 wins in his rookie season is impressive. He drives for Van Amersfoort. And there's another driver that's gone strongly this weekend, Sergio Sette Camara. He lines up 6th on the grid, 3rd at Spa, in the rather incident-affected middle race that we had there. But Camara going strongly around here. And as he has a final quick look at the circuit map and works out what gears and what speeds, then he's good to go. And starting on the inside, might be able to gain ground if he makes a decent start on the run uphill. Carrying on further down the grid, you get to 7th, George Russell for Carlin. Another driver that's had a win this year. He won at Silverstone on the Grand Prix circuit back in the first meeting of the year. Great start to the season, but then kind of went off the boil a little bit as he got to circuits he knew less well. But from Spa onwards, really, Norrisring and Zandvoort, George has regrouped and he's become more competitive once more. There's another of the Brits, Alex Albon, the Anglo-Thai driver, in fairness. Runs under a Thai licence to help with Thai backing for the car, but he's a Brit. And Alex Albon, whose dad raced in the British Touring Car Championship decades ago, driving now for the signature team. Alex Albon, part of the Lotus F1 Junior programme, certainly a man to watch, and we've seen him go strongly for overall podiums this year as well. He, for example, had a 2nd place at Spa. The most recent winner is this man, Marcus Pommer. He lines up 9th on the grid for the Motopark team. Marcus Pommer, winner at Zandvoort, and of course the winner last year of the German F3 Cup, the kind of national level series from which both he and indeed the team, Timo Rumpfkarl's Motopark squad, have progressed. 10th on the grid, Gustavo Menezes. This is a kind of Gustavo circuit because we know he's brave, evinced by how well he's gone in the past at Spa, both the right way up and upside down from this year when he had that huge accident. But Gustavo excels around circuits that require bravery, and I reckon from 10th on the grid, progress can be anticipated here from the American, driving this year for Trevor Carlin's team. He's part of the Jagonia I Am with Carlin set up in the bright yellow cars. There, further back on the grid, 11th is Mikkel Jensen. Now, Mikkel's had a kind of yo-yo season, really. Best that we've had out of him has been a second place. But we know that the Muka Motorsport cars can win because his teammate Max Günther has been victorious already this year. So you've got Mikkel Jensen lining up 11th on the grid. And then 12th on the grid is a driver, again, another one, new to Formula 3 this year, Raoul Hyman, whose uncle Chris Hyman used to race in the UK's Formula Palmer Audi Championship, but Raoul Hyman moving up from the BRDC F4 Championship into Formula 3 this year. And it's not been an easy season, but he has actually shown pretty well for the most part. So Raoul Hyman then starting 12th on the grid. 13th, Red Bull colours. What else? Callum Eilert. As the engines are now fired up, the 1 minute board is given, the grid being cleared. Callum Eilert eager to go stronger here on Red Bull's home ground. Another of the Carlin drivers, he's 13th on the grid, and 14th on the grid is the Prema Power Team car of Brandon Maisano, which hasn't had a happy weekend, actually. Brandon has gone reasonably well for the most part of the year, but struggled a bit here. That's looking down from turn 2. You can see it's a long, long run to turn 1. There's also a lot more curve in that section than you anticipate. There is the grid formed, ready to go. They will be from the pit lane. Ryan Tvita in the final of the yellow Jagonia I Am with Carlin cars. The grid is formed then, and very shortly the cars are going to be released onto the sole warming up lap to get warmth into the rubber. Felix Rosenqvist then at a track that he knows very well. He goes very strongly around here. He's looking to take another win and bring himself back into the mix in the championship, because he comes here lying third on 261 points. Antonio Giovinazzi is the championship leader on 288. Charles Leclerc 280.5. Half points, remember, awarded in 2 races at Monza. That's why it's a slightly strange looking championship situation. There's one car away rather slowly, which was Charles Leclerc. He's got going now, but a bit sluggish away. That brought out a yellow flag, as you saw for a moment, and Charles Leclerc has got going, but he can't afford to do that at the start of the race. So there's a long climb uphill towards turn 1, the Castrol Edge corner. And it's a tight right-hander. You can see the cars will run up onto the curb, but then behind it there's a bit of AstroTurf and another little curb as well, a sausage curb, that yellow strip that you can just see at the bottom left of the shot. And if you run over all of that, you will delay yourself. So there isn't quite the incentive to run out wide as there might be here at turn 2, for example. Turn 2 is a great corner. It's very tight, it's very slow, but you turn in, you're still going uphill as you turn, and just as you finish turning, you then drop over the other side, plunge downhill. The road rises once more as they head down now towards Rauch, turn 3, and that in itself, this is turn 3, is a very deceptive long right-hander, and yesterday people were coming in too deep, locking up, running wide. Jake Dennis in Q2 was one that scrabbled out through the gravel. Felix Rosenqvist and Jake Dennis at the front of the grid for round 22 of the championship, ahead of Lance Stroll, Antonio Giovinazzi. Then it's Leclerc, Camara, Russell, Albon, Pommer and Gustavo Menezes to round out the top 10. Scroll back further through the grid and you can see the likes of Arjun Maini with work to do from 21st. Pietro Fittipaldi a long way back, only 30th on the grid. Matthias Leist, who races in the MSA Formula in the UK, having his first outing in Formula 3, taking over from Nicolas Pola, who hurt his arm at Zandvoort, and starting from the pit lane, having not done the qualifying session yesterday because of damage, is Ryan Tvita. So from Rauch to the left at Pirelli, turn 4, short straight, down to another left-hander of the Wirth corner, turn 5, and then the run towards Rindt and into the Red Bull Mobile curve up towards the completion of the lap. You can see there where the sector points are. There is Ryan Tvita with the Carlin team, making sure that they release the car at the right moment and fire up the engine when required. The officials will also police the release of that car. Trevor Carlin himself standing at the front, I think, to oversee everything. So you can see the grandstands are filling up, the sun is shining, the temperature is going up as well. Formula 3 drivers get 2 races today, a busy day for them. The second race, the grid already decided based on qualifying time set yesterday, but if any penalties, for example, come out of this, then that grid is going to be shuffled. But for now, the grid forms, and at the front of it is Felix Rosenqvist. It's a 35-minute maximum time slot for this race, with 24 laps being the intention. Callum Eilert heads up towards the grid. The rest of the field all in formation then. Pole position on the outside, that means that on the outside line the pole man Rosenqvist has that length advantage over everybody else, but a good start here is critical because you've got that drag uphill. A tardy start is really going to compromise you on the run, not only to turn 1 but then from that on the next climb up towards turn 2. It's a real challenge for them. You can overtake around here, particularly if you're within about a second and a half away from the car in front. The tow will drag you along through certain sections of the circuit, particularly on the run up towards turn 2. So we are set. Round 22 of what has been another fascinating year in this championship is set to go racing. The 5 red lights will go on. When they all go out, we will be in business. Can Felix Rosenqvist make a good start from pole? Let's see. We're racing. Good getaway by Jake Dennis from the inside of the front row. Slow start by Camera, who moves across on Albon, who keeps on coming and gains the place. Up on the inside, Jake Dennis for the race lead. Goes through, though. Great move. And Jake Dennis, after a good start, takes over the lead. George Russell gets forced out wide, and he's not the only one either. More drop over the curb and fall back in the pack as now Rosenqvist retaliates. He levels with Jake Dennis on the run up towards turn 2. Jake Dennis has the inside line. Rosenqvist has his nose in front as he got the race lead as they break for the corner. No, not quite. Jake Dennis leads. Rosenqvist has to fall into second. It's Giovinazzi running third. And the cars now accelerate out of turn 2 with Dorian Boccolacci in the black car being forced out wide for signature. 2 race leaders absolutely together then as they drop down towards turn 3, heading into Rauch for the first time, and Jake Dennis hangs on to the advantage. You've got Lance Stroll having dropped back into 4th place all over the back of Giovinazzi. Do they all safely get through? Yes, they do thus far. But Jake Dennis leading, and he's had to work hard to hang on to the advantage on this lap. Charles Leclerc attacks Alex Albon as they drop downhill. Lap 1 of 24 then as the cars work their way into the Wörth corner. Gustavo Menezes there looking for a way round Mikkel Jensen as they work their way out of turn 5. And there Arjun Maini in the white and yellow car tries to gain ground around the outside, gets forced up onto the curb. Heading towards Rindt for the first time, end of lap number 1. A good getaway by Jake Dennis. Then he's worked hard on the opening lap to hang on to the advantages, and they drop downhill for the first time. Way wide, go more of them. So much for track limits not being an issue. We'll wait and see how many people are going to get penalised from this at the end of lap 1. Jake Dennis leading by 3:10. Second is Rosenqvist. Giovinazzi is third. Lance Stroll is fourth. 5th is George Russell. 6th is Alex Albon. 7th is Charles Leclerc. 8th is Sergio Sette Camara after a not so good start. 9th is Mikkel Jensen. And 10th is Gustavo Menezes. And remember that those two came to grief in race 3 at Zandvoort. They're running together again now as they head up towards turn 2. Arjun Maini also there in the next little gaggle trying to make progress. But is Jake Dennis going to be able to drive away and build a gap? Let's see. Gustavo Menezes in the yellow car right on the back of his Zandvoort rival Mikkel Jensen. Ryan Tvita has pitted at the end of lap number 1. I suspect this is a test session really for races 2 and 3 for him now. But as you look down towards Sergio Sette Camara up the inside of Mikkel Jensen, this is the battle for 8th place. Also trying to buy into this is the yellow car of Gustavo Menezes. There's a long line of them all squabbling as they work their way out of Rauch for the second time. Marcus Pommer has got work to do. He's fallen away massively on the first lap of the race, so Pommer in real difficulties to try to gain back places. Kang Ling goes through, number 35. Ling down in 31st at the end of lap number 1 of the race. Marcus Pommer 32nd after a really bad first lap. And what about Charles Leclerc? He was only 7th, so another driver with work to do. This is lap number 2. Leaders coming up towards the end of it. Jake Dennis then, who had 2 wins at Pau, 2 wins at Spa, leads here now by half a second. The gap is going up. In 3rd place, but falling away is Giovinazzi. 4th, Lance Stroll. In 5th place is George Russell. In 6th is Alex Albon, and he's under pressure now because he's got Charles Leclerc right up behind him. So Leclerc looking to try to attack as the rest of the field works its way uphill. Pietro Fittipaldi on the inside of the red, white and blue car tries to get up alongside Matt Solomon, who gets forced wide over the curb. There's Kang Ling for Mucker in the orange car as well. Good battles continue all the way through the field, but now Jake Dennis just looking as though he's got the advantage here. He's edging away just a little. Rosenqvist in 2nd spot, and then a bit of a gap back before you find 3rd Antonio Giovinazzi, but the best of anybody in the 1st sector, in other words on the run up towards turn 2, this lap done by Lance Stroll. And there Mikkel Jensen back ahead of Gustavo Menezes on the inside. Callum Eilert tries to buy into this as well. Eilert in the Red Bull car on the back of the yellow sister Carlin entry of Gustavo Menezes, the two of them together plunging downhill through Pirelli and then into the next left, the Wörth corner. That in turn takes you through that little S, speed building, short run down towards Rindt, turn right and then into the Red Bull Mobile curve to bring the lap to an end. Mikkel Jensen under attack from Menezes here. Sergio Sette Camara is getting away just a little up front now. Mikkel Jensen is having to defend as they work their way up over the timing line. 3 laps in the book. Jake Dennis leading by half a second. Rosenqvist still there in 2nd spot now. His last lap was a 26.3. He's still getting away slightly from Giovinazzi, so the gap second to third is not yet coming down. What about fourth? It's Lance Stroll. Fifth is George Russell. But he, in turn, is struggling to really gain ground as up towards turn 2 and late on the brakes there, look. Felix Rosenqvist quicker in the first sector. Under attack once more. Gustavo Menezes, wide he goes, over the curb, skips back onto the road, fends off Callum Eilert as they run downhill. And now the next man to watch is Charles Leclerc, because he's just done the best of anybody in the first sector. Right, Menezes versus Eilert here. Down they come, heading towards Rauch. Behind them, Santino Ferrucci in the mainly orange car, and then Raoul Hyman as well. This is 10th, 11th, 12th and 13th. And remember that 10th place is the last position for which you get any points at all. Points singular. 1 point for 10th place, but it's important as Menezes goes wide through the gravel. Eilert not close enough to capitalise, and Gustavo Menezes got a get out of jail free card there, because that could have cost him a lot of ground had the rest been closer. Eilert wasn't near enough, nor therefore were Ferrucci nor Hyman tucked up behind him. And Eilert now, has he got damage? Yes, he has. Past him goes Ferrucci, past him goes Hyman, and Callum Eilert is going to head to the pit lane with a damaged front wing. Disaster then for him, because Callum Eilert has got no chance of scoring points now. By the time they've done that, he may well drop off the lead lap. Down the pit lane he comes, and Callum Eilert pits for a new wing. The team ready. They've seen on the pictures what the damage is, and the Carlin engineers are going to go to work. But up front, the lead gap has come down a bit on this lap. Rosenqvist a fraction closer to Jake Dennis. A replay of the start. Have a look towards the top right. Jake Dennis made an absolutely storming getaway, and look what a bad start Marcus Pommer made. That is why he went tumbling down the order. Lights out now. Dennis launched it away. Marcus Pommer hardly went anywhere, and so the Zandvoort winner drops virtually to the back of the field. Thankfully everybody avoids him, but Jake Dennis up the inside. Lance Stroll had a cheeky look as well, but he then lost out on the run up towards turn 2. Jake Dennis through for the race lead. Charles Leclerc at the inside of George Russell, and as Leclerc made that move, that forced George Russell slightly wide towards the rear of the field. More people running wide. This was turn 2, where Rosenqvist eventually had to give way and slot back in behind. Giovinazzi by that stage had made the move work against Lance Stroll and was up into 3rd position. Stroll now running 4th, keeping George Russell at bay. So it's been a busy first few laps of the race, as over the timing line now, Jake Dennis half a second up on Felix Rosenqvist. There they are, the top 2 heading through the Castrol Edge corner, turn 1. In 3rd place it's Giovinazzi, and then 4th is Lance Stroll. Stroll currently the man with the fastest lap of the race, to his credit, in fact, as he tries to hunt down the yellow car ahead. In 5th place it's George Russell, and Alex Albon runs 6th. The point score is rounded out by Leclerc, only 7th, Camara 8th, 9th Jensen, 10th Menezes, and Rosenqvist has not given up yet, and nor has Lance Stroll. He wants to try to get himself onto the podium. The best we've had out of Lance Stroll this year has been 2 4th places. Can he have his maiden podium finish? Down the pit lane, as Rantvita is still in there, is Matt Solomon. Callum Eilert has rejoined, of course, but a long way down. Matt Solomon arrives now for the RR Racing engineers to go to work. Quick look at the back of the Dallara Mercedes. Gap for 3rds coming down, though. Giovinazzi being caught by Lance Stroll as they run downhill now. Callum Eilert, incidentally, is on the lead lap, but the bulk of it behind, so it was a pretty good pit stop done by Carlin. But again, for him, this has to be treated as a test session now, unless there is a safety car that would bring him back onto the tail of the pack ahead, and even then he'll struggle to work his way through a lot of cars in order to score points. There's Gustavo Menezes just coming back into view at Rindt, out of the Red Bull mobile curve. Over the timing line now come Dennis and Rosenqvist. It's 0.4 of a second between the two of them. Now, can Felix Rosenqvist here get a good run out of the Castrol Edge corner and challenge on the way up towards Remus? Turn 2. If anything, for 3rd, 4th and 5th, now the man to watch is George Russell, because George, the Brit, is closing on the Canadian Lance Stroll, rather than Stroll closing on Giovinazzi for 3rd place. Rosenqvist on this lap number 7, not able to close sufficiently on Jake Dennis to challenge. But of course now Rosenqvist has to think about points rather than just going for broke. He needs to score, and score well. In this race he is outscoring Giovinazzi and he is outscoring Leclerc, championship rivals both. So 2nd place, and the points that he takes for it will be important nonetheless. If he can hang on to the back of Jake Dennis and force a mistake out of the British driver, then there's even more points and another opportunity that's there ready for him. Another good fight coming down towards us. Tatiana Calderon ahead of Darian Boccolacci. Nabil Jeffrey in the white car goes at the inside of Boccolacci in the black car, and he's gone through. Nabil Jeffrey, the Malaysian, picks up a place. All of this is for 13th, 14th and 15th places, with Nabil Jeffrey there, number 22, up into 14th, and Boccolacci now coming under attack from Alessio Lorandi in the white, blue and yellow car, and he's under attack from Brandon Maisano. A wonderful scrap this as they work their way up once more towards the Rindt curve, which is coming up in a moment, and Brandon Maisano gets a run, heads to the inside of Alessio Lorandi. Up the inside goes Maisano. It's only for 16th place, and it's to no avail anyway as Lorandi defends well, both being caught by Fabian Schiller there. Look in the white and blue car. Also joining the queue, the orange Mucker car, that's Max Günther, and then in 20th place is Sam McLeod at the back of this little group. Sam McLeod works his way over the line in his Motor Park entered car. There, way wide, is Dorian Boccolacci out of turn one, rattles over that extra curbing of the AstroTurf and loses a couple of lengths against the opposition in the process. Working lap 8 now as the race leaders head up the hill. Out of turn 2. That yellow line painted across the road, incidentally, one of the slow zones using the DTM. 3 wide there, McLeod at the inside of Schiller as they work their way out of turn 2. And both of them being delayed because right up the road ahead is Max Günther, and Günther now doesn't know who to defend. McLeod has a go on the inside, and he's done it, goes through. Max Günther defended from Schiller, but he left the door open, and so Sam McLeod with a good move heads up the inside, going into the long corner, then the long right at Rauch. He's gone by. Günther tries to fight back, but in so doing is in danger of leaving open the door for Fabian Schiller to make a move, and he does not want that. All of this happening way outside the points. And we're getting Tatiana Calderon appearing on the message line on the timing screens. A driving standards flag for more than one change of direction. Tatiana Calderon being robust in her defence, down in 13th position then. Replay of the leaders out of turn 1, I should say, and right up onto the curb. You can see wider than Dennis goes Rosenqvist, just easing up onto that extra sausage curb put in behind. The idea of that is that if you run over that as well, you will actually delay yourself, so there's no incentive to flaunt the track limit regulation. To the outside of Günther went Schiller, up the inside at turn 2 went Sam McLeod. Eventually it was his pass, but have a look at Rosenqvist. He is very definitely coming back at his teammate. The gap was half a second, then 0.4, now it's 0.3, and Dennis having to defend down towards Rauch as Rosenqvist tries to make the move. That's where Jake Dennis went off through the gravel in Q2 yesterday. For the moment, he's withstanding the pressure then as they drop downhill. Rosenqvist again has a look on the inside. It looks as though he's got the pace now, and he's trying to force the mistake out of Jake Dennis. If he can just prise open the door, then the vastly experienced Rosenqvist should be able to go through. But the trouble is that if he can't make the move quickly, he'll be sat in the dirty airflow from Jake Dennis's car, and then it will have the negative effect on his own aero, and he'll go slower. So he's got to get into the toe and try and make that move. Got to pounce quickly. The other drama is that if he gets stuck there, or if they start scrapping and delay one another, that will enable Antonio Giovinazzi to close on Rosenqvist. And if he has to defend, then he really is going to struggle to be able to attack at the same time. Up towards turn 1 they come then, starting lap 10 of 24. The lead gap is still only 0.3 of a second now. Super slow-mo replay, Jake Dennis, race leader, the Racing Steps Foundation driver, part of the British Racing Drivers Club's Superstars programme. And at the moment he's keeping behind him Felix Rosenqvist, who comes here with 21 Formula 3 career victories in this championship. He's been a busy driver in F3 over the years, and every meeting we seem to say it's make or break year for Felix Rosenqvist, but he certainly does have a limited shelf life in Formula 3. He's got to move on and up if he can at the end of this season, and the best way to do that is to win the title. Right now, though, he's only 3rd in the title race, and he's on the back of Jake Dennis for the race lead. The white car there, Sergio Sette Camara, driving for Motor Park, keeping at bay the opposition for the moment. He's got Gustavo Menezes chasing after him as they run downhill. Menezes then up into 9th at the expense of Mikkel Jensen, and not only has he got through, he's also gapped now the Danish driver behind him. Menezes turning his way now out of the Wirth corner through that little S, and then the straight that takes you over the crest into Rindt. Out of Rindt through the Red Bull mobile curve, and then up towards the timing line, from which now the leaders come at the end of lap number 10. Over the timing line, the gap is up, 4/10. Jake Dennis there does the fastest lap of the race. And it's a good drive this by the Brit, because he's keeping the Swede Felix Rosenqvist behind him. He's withstanding the pressure. And despite the tendency perhaps to just keep focusing on where Rosenqvist is in his mirrors, Jake Dennis is still driving his own race and not being too distracted by what's going on behind. Now, what about Giovinazzi? He is still not able to close sufficiently. He's got Lance Stroll bearing down on him, and Stroll got a toe on the run up towards turn 2 that time and has brought down the gap. 5th is George Russell, still for 6th and 7th, Alex Albon ahead of Charles Leclerc. And Leclerc really needs to try and do something here, because with his 2 title rivals ahead, he's in danger of losing out yet more in the title race. It all kind of unravelled at Zandvoort, didn't it, when he retired out of race 2, crashed out. Then he scored badly, just struggled to get in the points. He did score, but not very highly in race 3. And those 2 races have rather undone what was looking to be a very impressive season for the Formula 3 rookie, the Monegasque Charles Leclerc. More battles to be resolved. The yellow and white car of Arjun Maini there dropping down towards Rauch. He's under attack. And so too is Matt Rao. He's got Pietro Fittipaldi behind him in the next pair. Maini has got Marcus Pommer tucked up behind. Marcus Pommer is down in 24th place, trying to recover from that duff start that he made. And way wide there, look, through the gravel has gone Max Günther, winner of the middle race at the Norris Ring, and Günther running it out wide through the gravel. He was a long way back anyway. Fabian Schiller not able to take advantage. The leaders have gone across the timing line, and it's Jake Dennis still in the lead of the race then. Big lock up there, up towards turn 2 from Max Günther. Completely locked. You see the smoke coming off the front right tyre. And there's just about enough contact between it and the road to get it moving again in the end, as he just releases the brakes slightly. But half a lap later, way wide through the gravel, onto the short circuit cut through, back onto the road went Günther. Here are the race leaders, the gap 4/10. It's still Giovinazzi running 3rd. In 4th is Stroll, and 5th is George Russell, hunting him down if he can. We're on the half-distance lap now, lap 12 out of the 24. And through that long corner, the long right at Rauch, go the race leaders. Jake Dennis then still looking very strong up front. He hadn't had a Formula 3 win until this year. This could be the 5th of them. 2 at Pope, 2 at Spa, going strongly. He's got Rosenqvist behind, and Jake Dennis coming into this race 4th in the championship. A good haul of points over the 3 races that we have this weekend would set him up nicely. We're also, of course, heading towards the end of the championship season. Talk at the start of how busy a year it was, 33 races. Well, we've got 3 here, 3 in Portugal, 3 at the Nürburgring, 3 at Hockenheim for the end of the year. So now, with limited numbers of point-scoring opportunities left, we're well over the halfway point of the season. Drivers realise, as there's a sideways Dennis getting the power down out of turn 1, that they have to keep out of trouble and score points. They are all crucial from this point on. Up towards turn 2, despite getting a little bit crossed up, Jake Dennis hasn't lost too much ground against Rosenqvist, who still isn't close enough to attack. He closes, coming up to turn 2, as over the timing line there is Fabian Schiller down in 20th, doing his best to stay on the tail of Max Günther. Lap number 13. Charles Leclerc has done the best first sector of anybody in the race thus far on this lap, so he's doing his best to bring down the gap against the opposition, Charles Leclerc. The one he wants to get past is Alex Albon. What about this scrap? Again, there's a lock-up from Max Günther in 19th place. And in fact, Marcus Pommer, who is still down in 23rd, he's ahead of Arjun Maini now, therefore, has just done the best first sector of anybody in the race. And Pommer is absolutely charging, kicking himself for that duff start. He's getting himself onto the back of Andy Chang, and there Leclerc is ahead of Albon. The change has happened, so for 6th place, Charles Leclerc has gone through. It's an important pass, that. It's more points for Charles Leclerc within the championship then, as they work their way down now towards Rindkurve through the right. The road opens up and then it's right again, plunge downhill, that slightly banked final turn of the Red Bull mobile curve. Over the timing line go the race leaders, and this gap has come down again as well. It's only 0.3 of a second. Rosenqvist has just done the fastest lap of the race. It's game on once more between the 2 teammates. They both drive for Prema Power Team, but it's every man for himself. This was the move that Leclerc pulled on the inside. Number 7, the black and white car. Charles Leclerc goes through. Albon tried to fight back, levelled on the run downhill towards Pirelli. But on the outside line, he just couldn't stand his ground. And so Charles Leclerc has done it. He's up to 6th. Race leaders come out of turn 2. Rosenqvist then has that fastest lap of the race to his credit. Now what can he do about making a move against Jake Dennis? It's not going to be easy, that is for sure. Downhill they come once more, out of Rauch, heading towards the left-hander at Pirelli, turn 4. But despite all the dramas that we've had early on in this race, we've had nothing about track limits, nobody being warned nor penalised about that. The only element of judicial work so far has been a driving standards flag for Tatiana Calderon from a few laps back. All of which is impressive because a few months ago F3 had rather developed this reputation of being full of rock apes after Monza and after Spa, big accidents at both venues. There, wide over the curb, does go Felix Rosenqvist in second place, but by current trends it's been a very quiet race. Some decent battling, some good racing, but none of the silliness that we've had at 1 or 2 events this year. So it proves that with a good talking to and the right mindset, the drivers can race properly, and Jake Dennis doing the best job of all because he's now built that advantage once more. He heads uphill. The gap was up to 0.4 of a second, and there's just been one slow car go over the timing line past the pits. Trying to see which one it was. It was dropping down the order. We'll come to that in a moment and see if we get another shot of a car limping through turn 1. The leaders, and we've now got 5 of them just starting to queue up. 3 seconds covering that leading quintet down towards Rauch once more. It's still Jake Dennis just ahead of Rosenqvist. The pressure huge on the shoulders now of Jake Dennis because he knows he's got one of the more experienced drivers, Felix Rosenqvist, and his teammate right up there behind him as well, looking for a way by. Downhill they come once again, and Jake Dennis with the advantage at the start of this lap of 0.4 of a second over Felix Rosenqvist. He has the advantage, and Rosenqvist certainly on this part of the circuit not close enough to make a move as Arjun Maini then dives up the inside and gains ground, heading down towards Rauch. He goes through on the inside, takes the place away from Andy Chang, who tries to fight back. And there's the car that was going slowly, Brandon Maisano, yes, tumbling down the order. So Maisano is in strife, and I suspect will be bailing for the pit lane at the end of this lap. He was 16th over the line, but now dropping further and further and further back down the order. But a good move by Arjun Maini, then up past Andy Chang, and he'll gain another place at the expense of Maisano. So that's going to be 22nd for Maini, having begun the lap 24th. 18 going through there, that's Matthias Leist, familiar from the MSA Formula, the Brazilian driver, coming to F3 for the first time this weekend. Jake Dennis currently works lap 16 up at turn 2. And is the gap coming down just a gnat? Well, yeah, it is, because Giovinazzi that time lapped quicker than did Rosenqvist, so 1.4 seconds covers the top 3. Race leaders powering downhill, but in a sense, Giovinazzi getting onto the back of Rosenqvist here is good news for Jake Dennis because it will distract Felix, it will mean he's got to defend, it will take some of the pressure off Jake, and the gap has gone up accordingly. 0.7 of a second now between Jake Dennis and Felix Rosenqvist. And if anything, Giovinazzi now looking closer to the Swede Rosenqvist than Rosenqvist is to Dennis. There is George Russell in the blue Carlin car 5th. The Prema Power Team cars 1st and 2nd, running Mercedes power, 4th as well, Lance Stroll for Prema. The Carlin cars 3rd and 5th, Giovinazzi and Russell Volkswagen engines. And George Russell moved from Carlin, for whom he drove last year, with VW power to Mercedes for this year. A pretty cool shot of the cars in slow motion, and this is an example of how much curb you can just about afford to take on the inside, others running out wide elsewhere around the lap. But the fastest lap of the race now done by Antonio Giovinazzi. There in slow motion he is, but Giovinazzi then getting a little bit closer to Rosenqvist. Has he got the ability, has he got the pace, has he got the time left in which to make a move before the end of the race? Up towards turn 2 they come, and Rosenqvist is trying to respond because he's much closer than on lap 17, getting onto the back of Jake Dennis, but he doesn't stay close out of turn 2, so he just drops away a little bit on the run now. Down the hill they come towards turn 3. Jake Dennis, the British driver, leading the way. His 2nd year in the championship. Felix Rosenqvist won all 3 races here 2 years ago. And a very experienced, very successful Formula 3 racer Felix is. He, in turn, has moved teams for this year. He was with Muka last year, had a really disappointing season by the standards he set himself, and Rosenqvist coming back to F3 this year with Prema, who went out and got him. They wanted a driver to spearhead the campaign, and Felix Rosenqvist has done just that with 6 race wins. Frustratingly, though, 2 of them only scoring him half points at Monza in the interrupted races there. The leaders now come up over the timing line to put now 17 laps in the book. Lead gap is up again to 0.7 of a second. And then 8 tenths back, Giovinazzi. We've still got this elasticated situation then at the front of the field. Jake Dennis, you've got to say, though, has controlled it beautifully thus far. Everything Rosenqvist has tried to do, Jake has countered. And equally, everything that Giovinazzi has tried to do about Felix Rosenqvist, Rosenqvist has countered. Through turn 2, the leading trio, 1.4 covered them last time, 1.6 covers them now. Down towards Rauch, towards turn 3, and you can see the undulation as they climb out of turn 2. Road drops, then it climbs, then it drops, and then they set themselves up for that plunge down through turn 3. It's a great facility, the Red Bull Ring. I know it's got lots of Red Bull money behind it, but it's a very impressive facility. It's not that flash, considering, and it's beautifully manicured. It's in great condition, as you might expect from a modern-day Formula 1 venue, but it's a place that everybody seems to enjoy coming to. Out wide there has gone Max Günther. That puts Fabian Schiller up ahead of him. So 18th place now is Marcus Pommer, 19th is Schiller, down to 20th has gone Max Günther. And for somebody that's been running competitively all year, this is a very disappointing run. Qualifying and the race not going according to the Günther plan, the winner at Norris Ring. Sam McLeod in replay, and another big lock-up, and this time off the road goes Max Günther. That's how Marcus Pommer got by, and that is why he was out wide, and so Fabian Schiller got up alongside him. But Marcus Pommer really struggling, not for the first time at turn 2. We see him locking up, but this time a pretty big mistake. Rosenqvist, fastest lap of the race last time, trying to close on Jake Dennis. The gap is down again to 6/10 of a second. We've got less than 9 minutes of the race to go. We're on lap number 19, and a flying lap is just under 90 seconds, give or take. It's in the 125s at the moment, as the gap comes right down once more there at turn 2. Rosenqvist has certainly not given up. Whether he's going to make a dive up the inside and risk everything, I'm not convinced, but he certainly is trying to apply the pressure to Jake Dennis, and he's been trying to do that race long, having not quite been able to make the move stick for the race lead on the opening lap. Down they come to turn 3 through Rauch, and then the speed building as they plunge off downhill. The other good thing about this circuit is that from pretty much most of the grandstands around turns 1 and 2, you can see the bulk of the lap. So for a spectator, you get a great deal of action for your money. Kind of look down onto the circuit, even though the circuit has lots of undulation. You're so high at the start and finish area that it's like looking down into this amphitheatre. It all unfolds in front of you. Over the brow comes Jake Dennis, down now towards the Rindt-Curve through that right-hander. It looks as though, he says, tempting fate a little bit. He's got this in the bag pretty much, because everything Rosenqvist has tried, Jake has had the answer to. There is Marcus Pommer. He's up into 18th place, but makes you wonder what he could have done without that ghastly start, because the pace has been there. Certainly Marcus Pommer has thrown everything at this to try and haul the car back up the order, and proved that you can overtake around here. The next target is Sam McLeod. 17th is the Brit. Their teammates at Motor Park. Sam having done a little bit of British F3 last year, but mainly the German Championship, which was won by Marcus Pommer. Both run a bit wide. Sam McLeod more so, coming out of the final corner, turn 7, and over the timing line they go. Lead gap is half a second. This gap, 0.8 of a second, as they now start lap 20 out of 24. 7 more minutes on the clock. Race leaders then working their way downhill already midway around the lap. Such is the pace that Jake Dennis and Felix Rosenqvist have got. But again, you see Felix is there. He's in the wheel tracks. The Italian tricolour colours on Felix Rosenqvist's second place car, the red, white and blue of the British motor racing talent staircase, Racing Steps Foundation for Jake Dennis. But both ran out of Remy Rossan's Prema Power Team stable. Over the brow they come, down now towards turn 6 and turn 7, from Rindt to the Red Bull Mobile Curve, and then up towards the timing line. Gustavo Menezes, incidentally, down in 8th place, has just done the best middle sector of anybody in the race as he goes after Alex Albon. The leaders come over the line. That now, as they go through, is 20 laps done. 4/10 is the margin. Rosenqvist tries to close at turn 1, but a little twitch means that he loses a length coming out of the corner, and Jake Dennis is away again. Menezes has now done the best lap of the race because he did 2 absolute bests on that lap, middle and end sectors. Does it help him? Well, it means that he's 0.3 quicker than Alex Albon ahead, but he's got to make up 2.5 seconds. So in the grand scheme of things, not really. Out of turn 2 come the race leaders. Lap number 21 now, 6 more minutes to go. Jake Dennis looks as though this is going to be a win for him as he heads off down towards turn 3, but Rosenqvist is not giving up, is he? That's for sure. Race leaders head downhill once again. Prema Power Team looking at first and second and fourth at the moment because Lance Stroll is still going well and keeping out of trouble. He has been, it is fair to say, in a few scrapes over the course of the year, but this is a pretty good effort from him. Jake Dennis, though, the race leader, former Intersteps champion in the UK going back a few seasons, which was for Formula BMW cars. Once BMW had pulled its backing, he went into the Formula Renault NEC, was the champion in that in 2012, fourth in Formula Renault 2-litre Euro Cup. Jake back 2 years ago, 9th overall in this championship last year, so he's had a very good strike rate in single-seaters, and this year just gets better and better. Win number 5 beckons. He's on to lap 22 now. The gap over the line was 0.6 of a second. Antonio Giovinazzi still there, running now in 3rd place, but just doesn't look, I'm afraid, as though he's going to be able to get close enough to Rosenqvist. That said, he will take points, and that is crucial as well, going, of course, to the remainder of this weekend and the remainder of the season, with only really now, once this weekend is done, another 3 race meetings. Portimao, the Nürburgring, and then the Hockenheim finale in October. So the pressure is on. But Jake Dennis here is not out of the hunt for the championship either, and another win in this race, and more perhaps over the rest of the weekend, will certainly help hugely. Out of Rauch he comes, drops downhill, and you can see he's getting away once more now from Felix Rosenqvist. Felix has been closer, unable to make the move, and then has to fall back again. So Jake Dennis pulls clear. The advantage building once again as the cars now turn their way downhill. Charles Leclerc still pushing. He has now done the best middle sector of anybody in the race thus far in his bid to get onto terms with George Russell, but I think it's a bit too little too late, I'm afraid, for the Monegasque. Over the line comes race leader Jake Dennis, 3.5 minutes on the clock as they complete lap 22. 2 more laps to go, and there is time enough for them as well. Onto the penultimate lap they go then. Once more, the gap comes down a little under braking for turn 1, but Felix Rosenqvist, I don't think he's going to be able to stay close enough. There is Charles Leclerc. He goes out of turn 1, rides up onto that sausage curb on the outside of the road, and he's hunting down George Russell. 1.6 seconds back he is. He took 3/10 out on that lap alone, so having finally got past Alex Albon, Charles is pulling away from the Brit, and he's certainly closing on another Brit, George Russell, but I don't think he's going to be able to do it in time now. Look at Rosenqvist, though, much, much closer to Jake Dennis. Is this one last push? Let's see. He moves to the inside. Again, tries to unsettle Dennis, and it almost works because there was half a gap on the inside. Rosenqvist now is certainly pushing, and he's going to have one last chance. He's up on the back of Dennis with a lap and a half to go. To the inside he comes as they plunge downhill. Is he going to be able to force a mistake out of Dennis, get him offline? Jake defends one way, then the other. Rosenqvist in the draft as they work their way through Wirth, up now, out of that little S towards the Rindkurve. This really is where he's got to try and make the move up the inside, and I'm not sure he's quite close enough. Let's see. Nose to tail as they come over the brow. Giovinazzi is catching up as well, and Jake Dennis then, after a tiny error coming out of turn 3 into turn 4, now really does have the pressure on, starting the last lap of the race. Rosenqvist is close as they come over the timing line. Can he force a way by on this, the last lap of the race, as they head uphill now? 23 laps done as they turn their way out of the corner and they make the run up towards turn 2. The gap is 0.3 of a second. Rosenqvist, perhaps having dropped back to just look after his tyres a little bit, is having one last push. This is the last lap. This is turn 2. He goes to the outside. He's got to be mindful of Giovinazzi. Can Rosenqvist get at the inside? That's the plan. Jake Dennis covers the move, though. It was at this next section a lap ago where it all really started, because Rosenqvist got close and tried to make a move, but now Giovinazzi is closer as well. So who's going to make what move against whom? Down they come into the braking zone. Rosenqvist having to defend from the Italian Giovinazzi, and that means that Jake Dennis gets away just a little bit coming out of the corner. Rosenqvist has to defend coming downhill. Giovinazzi in the yellow car to the outside. half a lap runs, and this now means, with a battle on for second place, that Jake Dennis isn't exactly home free, but certainly some of that pressure is just taken off him, because Rosenqvist has to defend. He does defend. He speeds a little bit better coming out of the S. Is he close enough to Jake Dennis to think about making a dive up the inside at Rindt? No. Plan did not work. He got stuck behind Jake Dennis. That means Giovinazzi caught him. In turn, Rosenqvist had to defend. That means he's dropped back, and so Jake Dennis comes through then to win in style for the 5th time this season. Jake Dennis wins by 0.6 of a second. Jake Dennis wins round 22 of the FIA Formula 3 European Championship. In second place, it's Felix Rosenqvist. In third, Antonio Giovinazzi. Fourth goes the way of Lance Stroll. George Russell takes 5th, and 6th is Charles Leclerc. Alex Albon 7th, 8th to Gustavo Menezes, 9th Sergio Seti Camara, and Mikkel Jensen takes 10th. Well, Jake Dennis may have dominated the race, but he had to work very hard indeed right at the very end to keep Rosenqvist at bay. But a great drive by the Brit, did not put a wheel wrong. Checkered flag is still being waved as Fabian Schiller, Max Günther, Arjun Maini, Michele Beretta come over the timing line. That takes you down to 22nd. Pietro Fittipaldi 23rd, and 24th is Andy Chang. Charles Leclerc there 6th. Felix Rosenqvist 2nd. Well, he gave it his best shot right at the very end, but it just was not to be. How frustrated will Felix Rosenqvist be because that didn't work, or will he be fairly sanguine about it and think, well, it's points? There is Gustavo Menezes, who comes home in 8th place, but Jake Dennis is the race winner. He's back right off on this in-lap. Very, very happy, understandably so, with a job well done. So round 22 of the championship won by Jake Dennis. The winning margin 0.6 over Felix Rosenqvist. And then for third place, Antonio Giovinazzi, with Lance Stroll a third, 4th place of the year, and also winning the rookie contest. Replay of Jake Dennis out of that last corner, up towards the timing line. Checkered flag waved. He moves right across up towards the pit wall to celebrate with the Prema guys on the pit wall as he goes by. And Jake Dennis, a very happy man, and arguably that's his best drive yet, because he had to work his way into the lead on that first lap away from the line, which he did with a good start. He then had to make sure that he kept Rosenqvist at bay, which he did, and he then had to control the race. There were occasions when Felix Rosenqvist got a bit nearer, but each time Jake Dennis able to control the pace, control the race, and build up that margin. And by defending on the last lap but one, and meaning that Rosenqvist got sort of stacked back into Giovinazzi, helped ultimately Jake Dennis to come through and score a win. Felix Rosenqvist then hops out of the car, walks away, doesn't even look back, does he? Another race done, move on to the next and try and win that one. Well, the results provisionally of round 22 of the championship: Jake Dennis, the race winner, from Felix Rosenqvist in second place. Third, Antonio Giovinazzi. Lance Stroll 4th, ahead of George Russell. Charles Leclerc rounding out the top 6, ahead of Alex Albon, Gustavo Menezes, Sergio Seti Camara, and Mikkel Jensen. Out of the points, Raul Hyman, Santino Ferrucci, ahead of Tatiana Calderon, with Nabil Jeffrey in 14th place, ahead of Lorandi, Boccolacci, Pommer 17th after his bad start, Sam McLeod, Fabian Schiller, and Max Günther. Arjun Maini coming next, ahead of Michele Beretta, Fittipaldi, Chang, and then you have Matt Rao in 25th place. 26th being Brandon Maisano after he had problems midway through the race. He did limp on to the end, but with dramas. So, into Parc Fermé comes Jake Dennis. The FIA officials there ready to conduct the post-race checks on the cars to make sure that the weight is correct, to make sure that they have run the allocated tyres, to make sure that the air restrictor is to the regulations. And Jake Dennis straight away goes over to congratulate and say thank you to his engineers. Contrast Felix Rosenqvist, who just got out of the car straight away and walked off to the driver weight check area. The frustration, I think, palpable. Pole position really would have translated into a win for Felix Rosenqvist, but it was not to be. Antonio Giovinazzi then 4th on the grid, goes one better in the race result, 3rd for the Italian. In the end, he was half a second behind Felix Rosenqvist, but he'll be on the podium nonetheless. Second place to the pole position driver, Felix Rosenqvist then. We know he goes well around here with his 3 wins from 2 seasons back, but the start not quite good enough, and try as he might, he couldn't battle his way into the lead of the race. And so second place, the reward for Felix Rosenqvist. But Jake Dennis takes win number 5 of his championship campaign, and that brings him now back into the mix. for Jake Dennis. The winning margin, 0.6 of a second. But a good start, a good first lap on cold tyres to hang on to the advantage, and then great driving throughout the race, really controlling everything that was thrown at him. And victory to the British driver for the Racing Steps Foundation, Jake Dennis. And so the drivers now making their way to the podium. Jake Dennis, then the man from Nuneaton, will, as he congratulates Remy Ross in there in replay, be on the podium very shortly. So what does this do to the Drivers' Championship? Antonio Giovinazzi still has the advantage from Charles Leclerc. And then it's Felix Rosenqvist in third, ahead of Jake Dennis now, with George Russell in fifth, Alex Albon sixth, ahead of Max Günther, Lance Stroll, and Mikkel Jensen is next. Marcus Pommer is the man that rounds out the top 10, but Antonio Giovinazzi edging away from Charles Leclerc in what's still an open contest, because Jake Dennis now is creeping back into the mix. Jake's been, although good, perhaps not as consistent as he has needed to be. You know, we've seen him have problems, not of his own making, in fairness, at Pau, had dramas at Zandvoort. There'll be one or two other races that you could argue have got away from Jake, but it's certainly been a much more impressive year than his rookie season, with now these 5 race wins. But with still 2 races here, and then a further 9 before the end of the year, don't rule him out yet. If he keeps on scoring well, and the others, like Giovinazzi, Rosenqvist and Leclerc, have dramas, things can change very, very quickly indeed. So, as the fans get ready opposite the pits for the podium ceremony, the drivers will be rounded up behind it. And then when we have the top 3 overall and the top 3 rookies, who are Lance Stroll, George Russell and Charles Leclerc, then we can have these 2 podium ceremonies. You've also got the winning teams. There you can see these spectacular trophies that are presented at the Red Bull Ring. Home these days of the Austrian Grand Prix. It's a venue that has European Le Mans Series, Formula Renault 3.5, as well as Formula 3 and the DTM. So more and more top-line racing coming back to Austria. And a circuit that was for a time the A1 ring, was rather unloved and in the doldrums, has been given this new lease of life. It's much more modern, it's more glitzy, but not too brash, in spite of what you might perceive to be the image of Red Bull, but it's all done pretty tastefully, and it is in absolutely pristine condition. The sun shining. Tomorrow there is the forecast of some rain. It might look rather different tomorrow here in the mountains, but for now in the sunshine, Jake Dennis walks onto the podium to the applause of Prema Power Team as the winner of round 22 of the FIA Formula 3 European Championship. He is joined by his teammate Felix Rosenqvist. A 1-2 for Prema Power Team, and Antonio Giovinazzi steps forward for third place. And of course it is a win, yet another, in Formula 3 for Prema Power Team, but it is also a win for Jake Dennis, the British driver. And so with the drivers already on the podium, then the presentation's about to begin. They all have the Hankook caps on, Hankook the tyre supplier, and it is Manfred Sandbichler, the motorsports manager of Hankook Tyre Europe, who steps forward to hand over the trophy to the race winner, Jake Dennis. The winning team is Prema Power Team, and there the Carlin engineers look on as the trophy presented by Oliver Martin, the head of hospitality for Project Spielberg, to Prema Power Team. Then Manfred Sandbichler steps forward to give Felix Rosenqvist, a frustrated Felix Rosenqvist, his second place trophy. There's absolutely no euphoria about that, is there? He's going through the motions. Trophy put down on the ground. Antonio Giovinazzi for third place shows far more positive emotion. And it wouldn't surprise me at all when we get to the spraying of the Henkel Trocken if we didn't see Felix Rosenqvist just walk away, because you can see that he feels that is a race that he really should have won. He gave it his best shot, but it just wasn't to be, and arguably it all started to be unravelled at the start. He just wasn't as good out of the blocks as Jake Dennis was. And so the Swedish driver conscious that a chance for maximum points has gone begging. Right, photographs all done. And now what do the drivers do? Does Rosenqvist join in? He does, surprisingly, despite his slightly po-faced expression. But as the celebrations take place, Felix doesn't hang around for long, does he? But Jake Dennis is the man with the broadest smile. Win number 5 of his championship season. And it has been a very impressive drive indeed by the British driver. So, from the lessons learnt here last year, a season of Formula 3 in 2014 with Trevor Carlin's team, Jake Dennis has put those lessons to good use, and he makes his way from the podium then. Jake Dennis, the race winner. He was up front race long, but he had to work very hard to fend off the opposition, that's for sure. But celebrations for him and Prema Power team. Thumbs up to the engineers. Another trophy for the collection for Jake Dennis in what really is turning out to be a very impressive season. But can he, in the remaining races left, get himself into the fight for the championship? Felix Rosenqvist is in that mix, so the man behind him there, Antonio Giovinazzi. So it's hotting up nicely for a 4-way fight, potentially, going to the last round. Last year it was 3 drivers. Esteban Ocon, Tom Blomqvist and Max Verstappen, who went down to the last round at Hockenheim, all fighting for the crown. Can we do better this year and get 4 maybe? Still in with a chance at the end of the year. So, as the celebrations are there on the podium, the next group of drivers make their way forward, because now we will have the winning rookies to make their way up for the presentations, with Lance Stroll being victorious ahead of George Russell and Charles Leclerc. Race 2, though, is to come up here later on in the day. Join us for that. For now, though, from David Addison. Bye-bye.